My name is VanBradley, and I play a lot of Civilization 6. And one of the questions I get most frequently is around wonders. The people want to know, which wonders should I be building? Which wonders are the best? Which wonders should I avoid like the plague? And I thought, hey, everybody loves a tier list, so let's make one. So welcome on in, everybody, to VanBradley's undisputable and definitely correct Civ 6 wonder tier list. Let's talk a little bit about the setup here. I have all of the wonders at the bottom of the screen, so that is good to go. There are 53 of them we are ranking today, and I've set up some categories for us to get a baseline. This kind of app here, tiermaker.com, starts you with like S through F, and I thought that's no fun. Those are just letters. So I created categories. These are not perfect categories, but they're what we're going to use. The S tier, the top of the bundle here, is build every game, no questions asked. This is for wonders that you should look to build every game regardless of what's happening, what victory condition you're going for, etc. Incredibly helpful in all games it's built. These are wonders you might not specifically target every single game, but if you ever get the chance to build them, they will always be incredibly helpful in any game, no matter what. We have great wonders that are situational. These are wonders where you build them. Sometimes they are great and help you towards your victory condition immensely. Sometimes you build them and you go, whatever, but they have their uses. They are great for a very specific thing. There are loads of wonders I would classify as good / backup wonders. They might not be at the top of your list for any one specific thing, but they're still good to build. You might accidentally stumble into them. You're at turn 150 and you look at your city production queue and you go, hey, I can build that. Should I build that? There's a lot of wonders that fit into that category that might be good backups if you don't get the ones you want up here. And then we have 3 categories that I just thought were funny. We have what, why, and uninstall. So what is kind of like, whatever, like build it or don't build it. It's never going to tilt a game in your favor, but it's not going to negatively affect your game either. It's just kind of a neutral draw. Like, you might enjoy it, it might be fun, but it's not going to change the game for you in any meaningful way. Why is, just build something else. Do something else. We're not building this. Why are we doing this? I don't understand. And uninstall, I don't actually know if there's any wonders that fit this category. If you build it, you should uninstall Civ 6 and maybe find a new game. There's lots of games out there. I've also tried my best to make sure that you can actually see the wonder abilities as I go through this. I'm not sure how that's going to work or if I'll forget to set up the wonder on the screen each time, but hopefully as you're following along, you're able to read the ability of each wonder so we know what we're ranking here. To keep things fair, we are just going to go in alphabetical order, and we're going to start with Alhambra, and Alhambra is going into the why category. Why are we building Alhambra? Alhambra just does a lot of things you can do better by doing something else. The amenities we can get in a better way. The great general point is kind of whatever, since you already have the encampments anyway. The military policy slot is kind of helpful, but all of the military cards you want in multiple policy slots kind of happen later in the game than Alhambra comes in, and by that point the government kind of covers that. I've never got into a situation in a domination victory where I'm like, oh my god, if only I had one more military policy slot. It's never once happened. It needs to go on a hill next to an encampment, which is not only a little annoying, just put a mine on that hill and produce some units more quickly. I don't know. I'm just not. Why are we building the Alhambra? I don't understand it. If you understand it, put it in the comments, but I don't. Next up is a Munson Scott, and this is the definition of great but situational. Getting the best out of your Munson Scott is difficult with the snow and the tundra, etc., but getting 20 to 40% bonuses to science, 10 to 20% bonuses to production. There's just so much going on here that will accelerate your science victory. I have watched so many, Civ YouTubers and Civ players, go for a, sub turn 150, sub 200 science victory with a whole strategy around settling a tundra city in the middle of nowhere just to build a Munson Scott to get all those bonuses for your entire empire. This is not something you're building every game. Not even every science victory will have one, because the conditions by which you are building it are a little bit difficult. But if you can build it in the right victory condition, this is absolutely sensational. So we'll go great, but situational, because most of the time it would be bad otherwise. Angkor Wat is going into the what category. It has some good abilities, but the time at which it comes into the game, those abilities aren't, fully fleshed out. So you kind of have to wait till later on in the game to get the maximum effect out of it. When you build the Angkor Wat, you feel good about it. You don't feel awful. It's fine, but it's never going to change the game for you. It's giving you a little bit of faith. It's giving you a couple population in your current cities. Let's say it says the Angkor Wat comes in at the medieval era, so you've got 5 cities. So 5 population's not nothing, but it's not exactly going to turn the tide for you either. The housing is fine, but there are loads of other ways to get housing. And so all of that said, I just think it goes in the what category. It's not going to feel terrible in most games, but there's probably better ways to spend your time than building this. Well, who's texting me? Why are you texting me? I'm talking about the Angkor Wat right now. Good God. I'm going to put Apadana in the good slash backup wonders. I often build the Apadana as a backup wonder in my cultural victories. In the time at which it comes into the game and you are building it, I find that the great person or the great work slots are very, very helpful. In a cultural victory, one of the limitations you often have are great work slots, especially for great works of music. And so I think that Apadana does a good job of providing things that are helpful for a cultural victory. There are very few games where I build Apadana and go, that was a waste of time. I always enjoy having it, but it's never the first thing I want in my, culture victory plan. So it's a good wonder. You could build it. It's definitely a backup wonder. This is the definition of what I would call a backup wonder. It's never going to tilt the game in your favor. It's not something you need to target every single game. But if you're looking for culture victory wonders or you're looking for great work slots, Apadana is great. Big Ben is the first one I am completely torn on. It's either incredibly helpful in all games it's built, which it is, or it's build every game, no questions asked, and I'm really torn. I'm going to put it in incredibly helpful for now. I have a couple wonders in mind for build every game, no questions asked, and then at the end, we'll kind of see how I feel about Big Ben, but I'm marking this one to come back to. Big Ben does a lot that's really excellent. The main thing, though, that I find very helpful is that extra economic policy card slot. I frequently get to the end of my Civ games, especially on Deity, and go, oh my god, every single yellow and green card slot is so helpful. And Big Ben comes at just the right time in the game. At that point, you have so many yellow cards that are helpful, that Big Ben giving you that extra card slot is incredible. The gold and the great merchant points is also great. It has a pretty easy adjacency. You typically have a lot of commercial hubs, you have a lot of tiles with which the Big Ben is good. You can usually plan around the Big Ben to get a good theater square next to it as well. I just really love this wonder. It's incredibly helpful in every game. If you ever get the chance to build it, you probably should. I don't know if it's ever tilted the game in my favor. I don't know if I've ever gotten the Big Ben and then it's been so decisive that it goes up into this build every game category. But in every game it's available and I can kind of build it, I definitely do. So we're going to put it in incredibly helpful in all games it's built. I don't want to spend too much time on the biosphere. I'm going to go great but situational. This is the first wonder that really skyrockets or plummets kind of depending on what you're doing with it. It has a weird adjacency, neighborhood next to a river. It comes late in the game. By the time it comes late in the game, the appeal to rainforest and marsh doesn't matter a whole lot because I've been able to get rid of a lot of that stuff. What I will say though is it is a good cultural victory wonder for that. It is going to tilt the appeal in your favor, maybe give you some national park options you wouldn't have had. The main reason it's great though is in a culture victory, you will get tourism for all of your offshore wind farms and all the rest, all of your power buildings. And I have single-handedly won games around a biosphere strategy where I don't collect tourism from any other strategy except for offshore wind farms, and I'm able to win a culture game with only the biosphere as my way of generating tourism. So it can be that good that it will single-handedly get you a victory condition. You can build a whole strategy around it, but in most games it's not very good and doesn't really matter that much, and it's just difficult to build and kind of a waste of time in most games. So we'll go great because when it is great, it is truly sensational, but it's mostly situational or bad. Bolshoi Theater is another wonder that's exactly like the Apadana. I find it to be a little bit better. It comes a little bit later in the game though, so its abilities are kind of relative to that. This is another wonder that sometimes I build it in my culture victories, sometimes I don't. I'm always happy to have it, but I never really build a strategy around it. Same kind of reasoning as the Apadana. It's giving you points you need for great people in a culture victory. It's giving you slots. A great work of writing slot and a great work of music slot are very, very helpful. It's giving you more slots to put those great works, which is great. I just find the Bolshoi Theater to be perfectly whelming. I enjoy building it when I need it. In most games, I kind of don't build it, but it's always good to have. I never feel bad about building it, so it's the perfect good backup wonder. And it's better than Apadana, but it comes in later in the game, so I think these two are relatively equal in that regard. Also has an easy adjacency, easy to build, there's no weird requirements for it, and so Bolshoi Theater just kind of feels good. Broadway's a tough one because it's better than these two that are in great but situational. That's not really true though, because a Munson Ska when it's great is super great. It's not incredibly helpful in all games though. I'll go great but situational. What I want though is a tier in between these two. I'm just not going to make a million tiers. This might be a bad take, but Broadway when you need it is great. 20% culture in the city it's built in can be very helpful. If you have a very high culture city, getting 20% is great. The times where I've used Broadway and it's been excellent have been truly incredible. It's not really something I build in all games, though. I kind of need to be going for a cultural victory. In most games, like the culture I have in my empire is fairly spread out. Like getting 20% in one city, it is a lot of culture, especially if you have envoys in cultural city states. But there's a little bit, it's situational in that sense, though, that you're not always going to have enough culture in one specific city. And then, even so, do you have enough production this late in the game to build the wonder? It is great when it's great, but it is situational. And so I think Broadway is going to sit here, even though if I don't, I'm not saying that with my chest, but I don't think it's quite as good as the ones that'll go up here. I will say, though, free Atomic Era Civic, easy adjacency, more great work points, more great work slots. There is so much synergy here. If you're combining this with like a Pingala, Oracle, Theater Square, you're just churning through those great people. I'm keeping it here. I'm keeping it here for now, but it's tough between these two. Casa de Contratacion, I'm putting in the good category. It's not quite what or why. It has some good abilities. Sometimes it's worth building just for the governor promotions alone, which is why I would build it. Gaining 3 governor promotions is amazing. The great merchant points are nice, especially later in the game. There are some really good great merchants that absorb city states or give you amenities with toys or jeans or whatever it is, which is awesome. Just needs to go next to your government plaza, which is a really easy adjacency. I find its abilities on other continents with governors, etc., to be a little bit lame, and that might be because I play on Pangaea a lot and just don't have a lot of cities on other continents to really use this ability a ton. But it's a good wonder. If you are building Casa, you're always feeling good about it. I've never once built this wonder and gone, oh man, that was a waste of time, which is kind of my threshold for these categories. If I've built it and never once thought that was a waste of time or production or whatever, then it's probably good, and that's how I feel about Casa. If you can make most use of it, it's probably up here somewhere. But in your average game of Civ, it's probably going in the good category. This might be the hottest take I've ever had. I'm going to put Chichen Itza into the Y category. I just don't understand this wonder. I don't understand what's helpful about it. I've played Brazil. I've plopped myself down in a rainforest. I've gotten the culture. I've gotten the production. Then I put lumber mills on all those rainforests to feel good. It kind of feels like the only situation in which Chichen Itza is even good at all is if you're playing as Brazil, which is great. Most of the time, though, I want to be getting rid of my rainforest for things. I don't want to be keeping them. And the fact that this only applies to the rainforest in your city is really limiting. If this applied to all the rainforests in your empire, it would be so much more versatile. It'd be so much better. Let's say you have 10 rainforest tiles in your city, right? At max, you're getting 20 culture, and that's the maximum. Now, 20 culture is a lot for a wonder to give you, but it's not going to blow you away. 20 culture is not going to tilt the tide in your favor in any meaningful way, and it's taken up all those rainforest tiles that you now can't use for something else, and then you have to wait till later in the game to get the lumber mills on those rainforests to make them even better. I just don't understand this wonder. Unless you are playing as Brazil, it can be good in one of your cities. For that reason, it's not quite uninstall, but I just hate this wonder. I've never built it and felt good about it. Even in its maximal setting, it just kind of feels like it's there to make the map look pretty, to make your city look like it has more purple dots, but it doesn't actually impact the game in any way that's meaningful. I just don't like Chichen Itza. The Colosseum is like Big Ben. It's somewhere in between these two. I'm going to put it in incredibly helpful in all games it's built. And the reason why I'm going to say that instead of build every game, no questions, is sometimes I do have some questions about the Colosseum. The Colosseum has a range, right? So it's giving the amenities to cities within a certain range. And so if you're plopping this down between 5 or 6 cities, as Maya, for example, and you've set up your cities like that where they're all close by, this immediately becomes one of the best wonders in the game. If you're putting it somewhere where it's only in range of 1, maybe 2 cities, it all of a sudden becomes a little bit worse. It's never bad. It's always good. It's always worth building. It's incredibly helpful in all the games it's built. There is a little bit of questions that I do have. There's also this problem early on is you're not typically building entertainment complexes early on, but this unlocks kind of right at the entertainment complex arena. You kind of have to go out of your way at an awkward point of the game to build this. The AI also really loved this wonder, and I'm trying not to take that too much into account. This is kind of whether you should build it, not whether the AI is also going to try and build it. So I don't want to hold that against it. But I find the Colosseum to be incredibly helpful. It's not quite at that SSS tier where you should build it every game. However, It is very good. You should learn how to use it. Learning how to master the Colosseum and like well place it for those amenities will put it in this category and it will change the way you play Civ. It's amazing. But we're keeping it here for now. Colossus is one of my favorite wonders. It's just good. It's one of my favorites. In Civ 6, the base game, kind of with the DLCs, your ocean tiles are not particularly good. So using them to put kind of the ocean wonders on always feels great. You're not really giving up a lot for it. Just kind of goes next to a harbor and some land, I believe, which is awesome. Gives you a free trade route. It's a good wonder, easy to build. You're not going to be fighting every Civ for it because not every Civ has a lot of, coastal cities. If you can build it, it's fine to build. I always feel good about building it. I've never once built the Colossus and gone, oh man, that sucked. If you think about what a trade route gives you every single turn, right? That's an incredible return on your investment. You're looking at like wonders, they'll be like, this wonder gives you 6 gold. It's like, this wonder will give you 8 gold every turn for a trade. You know what I mean? Like the return on your investment with getting a trader is incredible. And so I think this is worth going for. It might even be great now that I'm thinking about this is an early game wonder. You're building it, and then that trade route is collecting yields all day for the entire game. The amount it pays itself off. You know what? I'm going to put it in great. It's not even situational. I just don't have another category. I'm going to say it's great. I think that one trader, for the effort you put into building Colossus, you're going to want to harbor anyway, so that's fine. Yeah, I'm talking myself into great. I love the Colossus. This is a great wonder. Cristo Redentor, I'm also putting in great, but situational. I'm kind of almost always ignoring it until I'm playing a culture victory. Then I'm coming in and I'm building it. It is a good way to make sure some of your tourism is not being reduced by the enemy abilities. It's a good way to make sure your seaside resorts, if you're kind of planning around those, which I have 6 or 7 in most of my culture games, they're getting a little bit more tourism. I often find it's not too much of a burden to build Cristo. It kind of denies it from the enemy. When I build it in a culture game, I feel pretty, you know what? Maybe it's just good. Maybe it's just good. Oh, the times where it rocks, it really does rock though. Maybe it's just good. Maybe it is just good. I'm talking myself into it being good. It only needs to be built on hills, which is really easy to do. And denying, it's really helpful for denying culture victories because it just pushes some of your tourism out. Oh man. But it's specifically tourism from relics and holy cities, which, when I'm doing a culture victory, I appreciate a lot, especially with some of the new game modes. You have quite a few more relics. Yeah, I mean, it really does work well with the relics that you're getting from the secrets. Oh, you know what? When it pops off, it really pops off. And then it's not like I'm just ignoring it those other times. Like, it's not even like I'm building it and it's ever bad. Yeah, it's great but situational. Okay, I've talked myself into great but situational. Cristo Redentor. I feel like we are just collecting culture wonders in this like good and great but situational category. Eiffel Tower also going great but situational. Most games you're not going to care about appeal that much, so you're just going to not worry about it. In the games where you do care about appeal though, your culture victory games, Eiffel Tower is literally unplayably good. You are getting +2 appeal on every tile in your empire. It so immediately makes getting national parks easier. It makes getting, if you have Earth Goddess, it makes getting that faith easier. It makes so many things easier. This needs to go next to your city center, I believe. You have flat land adjacent to the city center. So it's not something you need to, strictly worry about building. It's pretty easy to build. It's great. When it pops off, it pops off. Otherwise, you can kind of just ignore it though. So yeah, Eiffel Tower, great but situational. Estadio. It's a good wonder. At this point in the game, when you are building it, amenities in every city is so helpful. It does have a weird, you got to build it like next to a stadium. It needs to be on flat land. Yeah, flat land adjacent to a stadium as well, which is a little bit annoying. The wiki says that it's culture in each city. I remember it is just culture in the city you build it. If it's culture in each city, it's a little bit better, but I think that wiki is incorrect. You'll let me know in the comments. Anyways, I don't think that changes the dial too much. It's a really, really good wonder. If you build it, you are always going to feel happy about it. This is one though that I typically don't plan around. I kind of just build it when I have the ability. I got an entertainment complex. It's got a stadium. I'm kind of just looking at my production list. I'm seeing a stadio. I'm like, oh, I'm going to build a stadio. So I'm never like planning around it in the way that some of these better wonders are planned around. But I've never felt bad about building it. So Estadio is going in good and backup wonders. Temenanki is like, what? What are we doing? What are we doing? Like, if your empire is set up with enough marsh and floodplain tiles to make this good, that's fine. It rarely ever is though, and even so, is it really giving you enough to get like an early push, but then it's kind of limiting you later on because then you want to build on top of all the tiles that Temenanki makes better, and it's a little bit awkward, and on some maps it can be good, but on most maps it's pretty bad, and I just never feel good about a Temenanki, and so I'm going to go for what? Like, it's never unbuildable. There are some situations in which it's fine. I've just never built it. I built it a lot. Like, I built it trying to make it amazing, and I've never once built even the best of Temenanki and gone, oh my god, game changer. What it is good at is taking marsh tiles in your empire that are otherwise bad and making them usable. But I think just taking bad tiles and making them usable is probably not enough for a wonder to be good on its own merit, especially because unlike a Petra with a desert, you're so rarely getting so many marsh tiles that it's worth it. It has its situations. If you have it higher, I understand that. But I'm just going what for a Temenang. It just feels what are we doing? Forbidden City is our first build every game, no questions asked. I will never ask you why you built Forbidden City. It is good every time you build it, giving you that wildcard policy slot. It's about halfway through the game you get Forbidden City. For the entire back half of the game, when all of the policy cards become very, very good, getting one free wildcard policy slot that you can use on anything is so freaking good, especially later in the game when you have those city-state ones that give you 5% culture and science for city-states. Being able to slot them both in and not give anything up, being able to just sneak the builder card in, buy a bunch of builders with 5 charges and sneak it back out. You're getting all of the military policy card slot you wanted with the Alhambra, but you don't have to build the Alhambra. You can just use this. It's incredible. Forbidden City is great. It comes at a good time. It's a reasonable cost. It's easy to build. The ability is always helpful in every victory condition in every game. Build it every game, no questions asked. If you are struggling with Civ, and the first thing you change about your game is you target and build the Forbidden City and then put good policy cards in it, that is going to be like such a good improvement to your play style of Civ. I love Forbidden City. It's an excellent wonder. You should build it every game. I will never ask you why. All right, maybe another hot taking coming, but why are we building Golden Gate Bridge? Like, there's a lot of abilities. I'm not going to go through them all or explain them all. Every once in a while, I watch like a really talented Civ YouTuber, make a Golden Gate that absolutely pops off. Almost always, it literally just looks pretty. It is designed to look pretty. This wonder would be immensely better if it connected between more tiles and not just the one. I very rarely find any use for this. There is the occasional time where it's good enough that it's not uninstall worthy, but why are we building this? Who cares? What's going on? I don't understand this. It's never been helpful to me. I suppose the best argument for Golden Gate Bridge is you build the Golden Gate Bridge. It gives you that appeal. You can put as many national parks in. I think in the Civ Give we just played, White Nerdy actually had 6 national parks in a Golden Gate Bridge city, which I suppose is the best case scenario for this. But even then, you have to get so lucky. Like, that's the situation is this. You need a place to build the Golden Gate Bridge, which is not a guarantee in every city. That's pretty difficult to find. Naturally, because it's going over water, it means you're losing a lot of tiles to the water. So you don't have a ton of land tiles to work with. Not all the time, but some of the time. And then you have to not build anything else in that city because you can't improve your national park tile. So like the best case scenario is so limited. This is why are we building this? I don't understand this wonder. I will say though, it looks freaking fantastic. It looks glorious. It makes your city look nice. So if you're building it to make things look nice, then 10 out of 10, it's a build every game, no questions asked. The Great Bath. I'm going to put it in good. It's a good wonder. It's a little bit situational. You need the right city for it, but it's a really early game wonder. It's going to, limit the flooding in that city. If you have a high disaster intensity or just a lot of flooding, early on, there's not a lot of ways to combat that flooding. Now, you can just take the flooding head on and repair everything and get the bonuses on those tiles. But in a city with a lot of floodplains, you're typically still needing to build things on those floodplains. So you're not getting the food and production bonuses from them anyway. And so blocking it off with a Great Bath, getting some faith, making sure that none of the things in that city are getting pillaged when things flood is really good. The housing is really good early on, like 3 housing that early on in the game can be really excellent. I think the Great Bath is good in a city early on where you can build it, and it's good. It'll be good. And other times you can just kind of ignore it. It's not gonna, it's not harmful if the AI builds it and you don't or anything. I just think, when you see a city that's good at using the Great Bath early on, and you build it, I find it very helpful. It immediately allows me usually to build 2 theater squares next to the Great Bath early on too, so you're getting some free early adjacency for your theater squares. Combine that with an entertainment complex. It's just it's not versatile in the sense that you need a very specific situation to build it. But once you build it, I find it to be quite versatile and quite helpful, and I enjoy the Great Bath. It's in line with these wonders where I don't build it every game, I don't even target it every game, but in the games where I find a situation where it could be good, I always feel good about building it. So yeah, it's a good wonder. The Great Library I'm also putting on is a good wonder. I don't think it's good enough to be great but situational, but I'll never feel bad about building it either. It just kind of comes at an awkward time in the game where the production to build it is a little bit difficult and you kind of need to swerve out of your way to grab it. But what it gives you is pretty good as a result. You're getting some slots, you're getting a variety of great person points. I believe it's writers and scientists and all the rest. So you're getting some good great person points in there. It's just an overall, just a really good wonder. It's really helpful if you're not great at getting your boosts. You could theoretically get a ton of boosts with the Great Library. If you are ahead and you're grabbing the Great Library, but you have a bunch of boosts behind you haven't managed to get, it'll help you kind of shore up the back end of your tech tree to push you through to the next era. I've never built the Great Library and thought, oh my god, game changed, game saved, we're gonna crush it now. It's not in this tier of wonder or anything, but I've never built it and felt bad about it either. So yeah, Great Library, good wonder. The Great Lighthouse is so good to being a good wonder, and it's just not quite there. The Colossus giving that trade route, like I mentioned, just every turn for the entire game, you're getting a return on that investment. The Great Lighthouse kind of comes at a similar time. They usually even get built together in the same city. It's kind of just like a what wonder, you know what I mean? It gives you gold, I believe. It's giving you some great person points. Its +1 movement for all naval units is very helpful, but naval units are just typically not a big part of a Civ game. This might again be my bias. I play a lot of Pangaea. I'm not using the naval units a lot, but even in the games where I've intentionally used the naval units, the +1 movement isn't making or breaking the naval game for me. So it's like so close to being something great, and it's just fine. Like what? Like if you're building it, I'm always like, what? I always build the Colossus instead. If I don't get the Colossus, I usually just skip this and focus on producing other things. I understand if you build it though, it's not gonna it's not a waste of time. It's not gonna, it's not a catastrophic error or anything. There are situations in which it can be fine. It's just it's conceptually something so close to great and doesn't quite get there. If the Great Zimbabwe did not have such an awful set of circumstances in which it needed to be built, it's like next to cattle and a commercial hub, like if it didn't have that problem, I would argue it's a good wonder. I'm still going to argue it's a good wonder. If you are in a game like these wonders, I haven't held it against these wonders where I say like, hey, if I'm not building them, I'm just kind of ignoring them. I kind of stumble into them. Every time I accidentally stumble into a Great Zimbabwe, where I'm like, oh shit, I put a commercial hub next to some cattle or whatever and I can build it. Every time I build it, I feel good about it. Giving you gold and great merchant points, which is very helpful. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of great merchants at the end of, or great merchants at the end of the game. There's a lot of good ones. So you want those merchant points. It's very, very valuable. It's giving you an extra trade route capacity. So like Colossus, what we talked about, that trade route that you're getting, I'm kind of attributing to the wonder. So it's giving you a trade route capacity that's very helpful. It's making some extra gold on those trade routes too by, improving the bonus resources or the gold you get for bonus resources at the destination. So yeah, if you're building this, it's great. This wonder would be so much better if it had a better condition under which it would be built. But every time I built the Great Zimbabwe, I felt good about it. So it's a good wonder. I feel like what should really be titled just like fine. I know I made these categories myself and I can change it, but it's like, fine. Hagia Sophia is fine. In the games where you're going for the religious victory, it is quite nice to be able to spread the religion one extra time. This can be kind of helpful in games where you're going like Crusade and you want to spread your religion quickly while being faith efficient. There are lots of games where you have a religion for a specific purpose, but you're not generating a ton of faith exactly to be able to buy lots of missionaries and apostles. This can help with that as well. I just find in the games I'm going for a faith victory, I'm winning the game by getting apostles with the debater promotion, just beating up all the other religious units, not often via spreading it myself. And so it's just fine. When you're building it for a faith victory, it's never going to feel too bad, but it's never even really that good either. It's definitely not in this category. Like, I'd much rather have a Hagia Sophia than a Chichen Itza or a Golden Gate Bridge or an Alhambra. So it's definitely, this is more of a vibes-based placement than anything else. Occasionally it's fine, but mostly it's not. So yeah, what? The Hanging Gardens I'm also putting in the kind of what category? The 15% boost to city growth can be helpful. I find though that what it doesn't take into account is housing. Like I find that the city is growing and I'm having more tiles, but I don't have the population to work all of those tiles. And so it's just kind of outpacing my ability to work the tiles anyway. Now that doesn't mean it's bad. It gives me more tiles to work from, which naturally means like let's say I would have had 8 tiles, but because of Hanging Garden, I have 10. I can pick the best 8 out of the 10, which is quite nice. But it just doesn't quite do it for me. Like every time I build the Hanging Gardens, I'm like, oh, this is cool. But I'm never like, oh, that was good. Oh my, like I never have that feeling where I'm like, oh, I get it now. In Heroes and Legends mode, giving you the extra 10% lifespan can be really good. If you have an extra 10% lifespan on some of your military-focused heroes, that can be great for winning a war. Himiko, especially getting that, combat strength. So if you have like a Himiko strategy or an Oya strategy or a twin strategy around heroes, this all of a sudden might become great but situational. 10% on a lifespan is quite a lot later in the game, but it's just kind of what, I don't know, build it, don't build it. It's not going to make your game worse, it's not going to make it much better, it just kind of is. Hermitage is joining the collection of culture wonders that are good but kind of backup wonders. This might even be great but situational depending on your game. I have found personally a really good ratio of art museums to archaeological museums in my culture games, so I'm not usually struggling with great work of art slots. However, if you are struggling with great work of art slots, Hermitage is great. You can never have too many slots. You have to consider too all of your neutral slots. So you have your one in the palace. If you're playing with Void Singers, the Secret Society, you have a lot of neutral slots in each of your old god obelisks. And being able to take great works of art out of there, put them in a Hermitage, and then putting your great works of music or your relics inside the old god obelisk can be really nice. It's versatile, it's fun, it's never bad. It's just a good culture wonder. Hermitage, I like it. I've never been wowed by it, but I've never been let down by it either. I enjoy the Hermitage. It's a good wonder. Huey, 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 Huey. The wonder that everybody loves to meme. It's what? It's not why. I've built some Hueys that are fine. I've seen some Hueys built that are fine. In the right lake, you're getting like 4 amenities from it, which is pretty darn good. That's like a whole luxury resource, which is nice. If you have a lot of lake tiles, that production is very helpful because there's not a lot of good ways to get production on your lake tiles. Never once, though, even the best Huey, never once has it been amazing, but the best Hueys are far enough away from terrible that they're not Y or uninstall. So Hueys, what? Like, what is it doing for you? What? And the AI loves to build dumb Hueys too, which is really funny. I don't want to be too hard on Jebel Barkal. It's an early wonder. It's going on a desert tile that's kind of otherwise useless. It can sometimes be a bit hard to build because those desert cities often don't have a ton of production. It's taking a tile away from a potential Petra. If you're going to be building an early desert wonder, please, for the love of God, build the pyramids. But I'll go what? Like, the iron is fine. You're not going to have iron in every game, right? The game doesn't guarantee you a source of iron. So the iron might be kind of cool. The faith is interesting, and depending on where you put it, the faith can be interesting. Faith is a really good resource. It's not giving you enough faith to change the game, but in the right setup with the right amount of cities, that faith is coming at a point where your monumentality golden ages are hitting, which can be quite nice. I built a handful of Jebels that have been nice. I've never built one that was like, oh my god, amazing. But you know what? They're taking up useless tiles. It's better to have one than not have one. I don't know, but it's not that bad. It's not wire uninstall, but it's not much greater than what? Depending on the game, Kilwa Kisawani could go in either of these 3 categories. I don't think in good conscience I can put it and build every game no questions asked, because it does depend on the city-states and the city-state composition in your game, right? Is it incredibly helpful in all games? I don't know that that's true either, but it's better than situational. Like, I'm always happy to have it. Oh, but it's not... Oh my goodness. All right, well, let's just plop it somewhere where the vibes feel, and then let's talk about the ability. So what Kilwa does really well is if you have the suzerainship of multiple city-states of the same type, it will give you an additional bonus. So let's say in your best case scenario, without the doubling up, you just have one city-state of each type, you're the suzerain of it, you are getting a 15% bonus in that city. That's not overly helpful because of the city you build. Like, it depends on the city you build Kilwa in. At that point, it's just becoming too situational, right? But as soon as you double up, like if you are playing a science game and you have 3 or 4 science city-states and you are getting that additional ability for every city, all of a sudden it's just skyrocketed up to S tier. So maybe it just kind of sits in the middle. As soon as those city-states are doubled up, though, it's like even just having 2 science and 2, financial city-states economic are so good. Like Killua is just so good, but it's not every game. It's just simply not good in every game. It depends on the map size, it depends on your city states, it depends on whether you're running Barb Clans mode and can generate new city states. It depends on the ability to be the suzerain of them. It is situational in that sense, but not so situational that I'm putting it here. I'm going to put it incredibly helpful in all games it's built. You're still, the worst case scenario is you built the Wonder on an otherwise kind of flat tile by the ocean or whatever. You got your envoys, you're choosing a city state or two that are helpful for the city it's in. It's never terrible, but yeah, it's not every single game. So we're going here with Colosseum and Big Ben for Killua. I think Kotaku was a little bit better with old Earth Goddess, and you can really generate a ton of faith in a city. There is the occasional city where the 20% faith is so good that this is just immensely worth it. It's coming at the medieval era. It can kind of help with some monumentality, but if you're going this far into your religion, you're probably not spending your faith on monumentality anyway. You're probably spending it on. I can go why. Why are we building Kotaku in? Like, is the 20% faith that early in the game in that city ever that helpful? And then later in the game, how are we generating faith later in a game? I suppose if you get your Void Singers, you got your old God Obelisks. Oh boy. I'm trying to give it the benefit. I don't want the Wonders to be here. I'm trying to give them all the benefit of the doubt. But I think it is kind of just why. Like in every game you build it, it's kind of just why. Machu Picchu time. Everything I don't like about this Wonder kind of is a very deity-specific issue, so I'm not going to hold any of that against Machu Picchu. The one thing I don't love about this Wonder, and it feels almost like lazy game design, is the fact that you can't use your great engineers or like China's ability to build wonders because this goes on a mountain. This is great but situational. If you have a lot of mountain tiles in your empire, getting the extra adjacency is fantastic. S tier, amazing. If you don't have a lot of mountain tiles, this is just not a very good wonder. It's great, but it's very situational, and that situation is how many mountain tiles do you have? Because those mountain tiles are otherwise kind of useless. They're not giving you yields, they're taking up space in your cities. If they're giving you yields to commercial hubs and industrial zones and theater squares and other districts, you know, essentially they're providing that adjacency. You can then double that with the policy cards. It's likely you have your commercial hub or your industrial zone adjacency boost card in anyway. So yeah, Machu Picchu can be exceptionally amazing. In some games, it can be terrible. It kind of just depends on how much mountain ranges you have in your cities. But yeah, good wonder. Great wonder when it's good. Mabodi Temple, another great but situational. In a faith game, getting these 2 free apostles is incredible. It'll just allow you to evangelize right away, or it will give you some apostles that have the debater promotion, also great. In games where you're not going faith and you do not need this, it is awful, but when it's good, it's great. And I think it's just great but situational. You know when you need to build it. When you can build it, it's going to be great. When you can't build it, it's not going to be very good. There's never been a game in which it's buildable where I've been upset about building it. It is a great wonder. In any time you can build it, you're next to a holy site, you get 2 free apostles. That is always good. There's always going to be good. So I think it is great, but it is situational. Mausoleum at Halicarnassus is incredibly helpful in every game it's built. In a science victory specifically, I would build it in every game you're going for a science victory. In every other game, it's just wonderful in general. It makes all your coast tiles better. Coast tiles are tiles that are not normally good. There's a lot of work that is needed into making them better. And even after you do all of that work, sometimes you kind of just need Auckland for that little bit of boost. And so getting the culture and the science and the faith or whatever on those coast tiles is great. The key to Mausoleum, though, the real deal, the reason why it's probably the best wonder in the game for a science victory and just so exceptionally good in all situations, it gives you extra charges on your great engineer. Every wonder engineer getting an extra charge. There's that engineer that gives you extra districts above the population limit. That one is incredible. There's the engineer that builds walls. There are so many engineers where getting one more charge can completely change how good that engineer is and change the course of your game. Mausoleum is exceptional. It's not it's not quite buildable in every single game the same way Forbidden City is, but it's close. It's probably the closest that's hovering this line. I feel like it's going to sit in here though, but you should be building Mausoleum more than you think. If you're not building it often, you're not building it enough, I don't think. I'm going to be nice to Meenakshi Temple and put it in the what category. A lot of these faith wonders are going in the what category, kind of like a lot of the culture ones are going in the backup category. If you are new to a faith victory, the cheaper gurus are going to be helpful. It is unlikely you are generating as much faith as you could be if you're kind of newer to the game. The gurus are very helpful in keeping your debater apostles alive and, goon squatting the enemy. It's not why. I can understand why you would build this, and I understand what its abilities do that is helpful, but it's not good, right? But it's not why. It kind of just sits in this what category. It's like, build it if you want. You should be able to do everything the Meenakshi Temple does. You should be able to do no problem without it, but it does give you that little boost if you're unsure or you don't have a lot of faith or you want those gurus or whatever. So you know what? I'm going to be nice to it. What are we doing? I'm not really sure, but Meenakshi Temple, fine. Yeah, it's still not good. And now that I'm thinking about it, like giving the extra, you get the cheaper guru, it gives the combat strength. You add that combat strength to the government and the policy card, and you're just beating up the enemy. It still requires quite a bit of coordination though, and you can still do all of that without the extra 5 is nice, but it's not going to tilt it in your advantage. If you're not already set up to do really well, the 5 isn't going to tilt it in your advantage anyway. So I just think it's fine. Fine, whatever. Meenakshi Temple. I feel exactly the same about Mont Saint Michel as I do about Meenakshi Temple. If you are relying on the abilities of Mont Saint Michel, you are likely already in a situation to win. And if the Mont Saint Michel abilities you're relying on them to like save you from this victory condition, then you're probably not playing well enough to get it anyway. However, what I will say is giving all the apostles the martyr ability is nice. And when you have void singers and you're getting all those relics, getting the relic slots can be kind of nice. I want to say I built this half a dozen times in my Civ 6, and every time I've been okay with it. Like I built it when I knew that it would be fine. I gave it the best chance to succeed, and it was okay. But every time like the AI builds Mont Saint Michel, I'm like, oh, thank God they wasted their time on that. So yeah, I never feel amazing about it. But I understand why you would build it, right? I understand why you would build it, so maybe it's not this bad. The moment we have all been waiting for. You knew it was coming, I knew it was coming. My favorite wonder in Civ 6, it is the Oracle. I literally tried to build this in every game, and I will beeline it and miss it if I have to, just to try to get Oracle. In a game of Civilization 6, one of the best things you can do to accelerate your game and gain an advantage over the AI is great person points. The reason why they're so helpful is every category of great person points, it's either necessary or there are good options, right? For a culture victory, it is necessary to have a lot of the great, writer, musician, artists, right? For a science victory, you need to churn through the great scientists and great engineers to get to the late game ones, and all the ones along the way are going to be helpful in accelerating your game. They're going to give you boosts, they're going to give you science, they're going to give you culture. All of the great merchants are going to give you gold or envoys or governor promotions. Like all the great people, not all of them, but like great people in general are fantastic as a broad body of things to acquire in Civ 6. You put the Oracle in a city, you are now generating an obscene amount of great person points from the districts in that city. You then plot Pingala in that city to get the grants promotion, to gain 100% more great person points. With a single city, you could put one district in each city, right? So you're getting one commercial hub, one science, or one campus, one theater square, and just the amount of great person points that you will be generating from Oracle and Pingala will be enough to keep up with the AI having 3 or 4 cities of great person points churning through. There's no limit to this, right? You can build one of every district. So it's not like you've built your campus, it's giving you science points. It's going to give you points on whatever you're already accruing in the city. So it's incredible. And it's not just when it's built. When you build districts later, it'll just kind of start giving you those great person points as well. It's so good. It's so versatile. It's good in every victory condition. It's good in every game. It just needs to go on hills. It's an early game wonder. It gives you theater square adjacency. It's fantastic. It's incredible. It's better than Forbidden City, I think. The amount of times, I'll put it this way, when I was going through Civ 6 and I was upping my difficulty, and when I started playing on Deity, the first big change I made to my game on Deity was to go get the Oracle every single game as a little bit of a crutch, so that I knew that if I wasn't able to get as many cities as I like, if I wasn't able to do this, that, or the other, I would still have a good stream of great people coming through. I immediately started winning every single Deity game I played. It was so much easier to work around an empire that is this much more versatile around the great people you can get. It's so good. You should build it in every game. I could gush about the Oracle forever and ever and ever. It's amazing. You should build it. Go build it every time. Awesome. Fantastic. I don't know how to say this, and feel free to correct me in the comments. Orzgazi, who even knows? The Orzgaz is fun. It's bad. It's probably like, why are we building this? But there's been a handful of times where I was already generating a lot of Diplo favor. I was the suzerain of a lot of city-states, and I was able to kind of get more Diplo favor for doing that. And then you can kind of buy your way to a Diplo victory by just having that much. You can just buy your way through all the, like, the competitions when someone gets hit by a hurricane and we need to help them recover or whatever. Being able to spam your Diplo points into that to make sure that those abilities fire, that you can start doing that, is great. To use the Diplo favor to kind of buy the World Congress in your direction for Diplo points are great. Being able to sell the Diplo favor is great. Like, I understand why you would build it. It's never amazing, but it's pretty funny if you can make it work. Churning through a lot of Diplo favor for just no reason is just always a fun little mechanic in Civ 6. So I have a soft spot for Orzgaz. I've built it a handful of times, and every time I had a great time. So it's pretty bad, but you know what? It's fun. Oxford University is tricky. It's definitely good. Undeniably good. 20% science in the city is fine. It's a little bit of a messiness to build. The boosts are good. The boosts are great. The great person points are good. Does it give slots? Yeah, 2 great work of writing slots. It's somewhere here. I don't think it's in this tier. Like, I've never built an Oxford University that's changing the game, but I do frequently, like, I know I've shit on some of the other 20% bonuses, like 20% faith in the city. What's different about science, though, is I actually frequently have enough science in a city that 20% is a large number, especially when it's kind of all added together with all the other percentage boosts you're getting throughout a game. I don't know if it's incredibly helpful in all games it's built, but it's not situational. Every time you build Oxford, you will notice it. I feel like there's a category gap here that's just missing for this. I'll go incredibly helpful in all games it's built. I think I would amend Oxford to specifically say mildly helpful in all games it's built, up to amazing, right? Like, there's a spectrum there. But I don't think you'll ever build Oxford University and feel bad about it at all. Like, it will be helpful, whether it's the boost, the great person points, the science, like, something about it will be doing something great for your empire. Yeah, I'll go incredibly helpful in all games it's built. I think that's true. I hate to do this to my poor Panama Canal, but I'm just gonna put it in why. I've never seen a Panama Canal and thought, oh my god, what a great use of time, production, tiles, etc. Every time, if you go on like the Civ subreddit or into like my games or doing the AIPL or whatever we're doing, every time someone builds the Panama Canal is 100% just for the looks. It's like, how big of a canal chain can I get? I suppose that the Panama Canal could be great in connecting a really high production city to the ocean and then building boat units to kind of get out into the ocean. But the naval combat, like the naval part of this game, is just such a non-starter in most games that even that's not very helpful. It takes up a lot of tiles. Like, it does give you an industrial zone bonus and a theater square bonus, but by the time you're getting to Panama Canal, you've got all the theater square bonuses you wanted already, and your industrial zones are already down. So it's not like you can't plan, okay, I'm going to build the Panama Canal here and then put your industrial zone and theater squares down. So you're not even making best use of the adjacencies. That's why are we building this? You don't need to uninstall if you're building the Panama Canal. It's not that bad, but it might be pretty close. It's Petra time. Definition of great but situational, right? Like, if you have a lot of desert tiles and there's nothing to do with them and you build the Petra, boom, all of a sudden those desert tiles are a lot better. Put some Nazca lines on them, whatever. Like, you are just taking tiles that are truly terrible and making them less bad. There's only, like, the Petra can only improve your situation, right? You just gotta use a couple of brain cells to know when to build it. If you only have the one desert tile available and you put the Petra on it, that's a waste. But I'm going to assume in good faith that the player is building the Petra in a situation in which it would be at least average. Every time I build the Petra, I feel great about it. It is taking a city or a section of a city that is otherwise completely useless to me and making it not as useless, right? So great, but it's the definition of great, but situational. I don't know if this is a hot take or a cold take or if I'm just vibing out. I'm going to put Patala Palace up in incredibly helpful in all games. I am a policy card snob, not for the red ones, but for the yellow ones, the green ones, and the wild card ones. You can see how much I value them. Yellow policy cards going here, wild card policy card slots going here, red one all the way down here. The green policy card slots, they take a while to kick off, right? But in a culture victory, I'm always thankful for having. I can like take the extra one Patala Palace gives me and put in the rock band blocker. In a science game, I can make sure that I have both the city state cards in there. I could get the especially with like a Himiko or whatever, I can get the card that puts in the gold per envoy at city states. Like I think at the point you're getting Patala Palace in the Renaissance era, that green card is just starting to become very, very helpful. On top of that, it's giving you culture, it's giving you faith. I just think this is incredibly helpful. Every time I build this, I feel great about it. I don't normally plan around it, but I very frequently build it. And so I think it's incredibly helpful. I think within each of these tiers, there is a sub-tier list. Like, I would build Patala Palace more than I would build... You know what? Maybe this is pretty good. Like, yeah, probably more than Oxford. Maybe you can rank them like within each tier would be a fun second video. But yeah, I could put Patala Palace up here. I think it's incredibly helpful in all games it's built. The only problem with the pyramids is you need that flatland desert tile, and you need that desert tile early on. The pyramids are the reason that I would like Civ to transition into a wonder claiming system instead of the current wonder system, but that's for another video because most people hate that idea. But it's build every game, no questions asked. I will never ask you why you're building the pyramids. The pyramids give you an extra build charge on every builder, and this happens at the beginning of the game. So it's almost all the builders in your game. This is not happening at the end with only a few builders left. You are getting one extra charge on every builder, which is incredible. That is just purely making the game a lot better for you. Separately from that, you can then combine it with the policy card that gives you 2 extra build charges. You are now getting 6 charge builders. If you want to combine that with Liang, you can get 7 charge builders really easily. The pyramids are incredible, and it gives you a builder back. Right, so you spend a builder to go and chop out the pyramids, you get that builder back right away with 4 charges. So you're getting a builder back more than what you put into it. So yeah, I just think the pyramids, build them every game. I don't think maybe they're not at the level of the Oracle or Forbidden City because these are buildable in every game. That you can target these and build them, whereas pyramids, you kind of need the right tile early on. But if you can build the pyramids, you should be building the pyramids in every game, no questions asked. VanBradley, incredibly helpful in all games is built. Now, this is where the sub-tier list is kind of helpful. I might put this above Oxford. Yeah, like, you know what I mean? The sub-tier list, I'm really trying to talk myself into doing another video with the sub-tier lists. But VanBradley gives you 20% production in a city, and then additional production for some of the mines in that city, which is incredible. By the time you get to the Ruhr Valley, you need a factory, which means you've got some industrial zones and they're generating great engineer points. It's likely you've got a wonder engineer that can just spit this out. This is best utilized in a science victory where you're needing that production to build the space race projects later on. But since every city is using production as a currency in its build queue every single turn, there's never really a situation in which you can build the Ruhr Valley and it will be bad. And because you need an industrial zone with a factory in the city you're building Ruhr Valley, it means there's enough production in that city where the 20% is at least meaningful. So I would say in almost every situation, the Ruhr Valley is somewhere between neutral to amazing. But I don't think there is a situation in which it can possibly be bad just by virtue of how you have to build it. And so, yeah, it's incredibly helpful in all games it's built. Am I ever asking any questions? I don't think it's as versatile as these 3. I think there are some cities where I'd be like, why'd you build that? Like, you didn't need that. Like, you could have done something else. I just think the time and resources necessary to build it will always, at the very least, cancel each other out. Yeah. All right, I'm sticking with my guns here. I think this is a good placement for it. St. Basil's. This is where the categories are letting me down on this one as well. It's not really I understand why you're building it, but it's not good in every game. It's very situational, but it's not great when it's situational. Plus 100% religious tourism is pretty good. Oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, I'm going to put it in the what category with all the other religious wonders. When it's great, it's really great though. Like, that's the thing, is if you have the Tundra setup for it, it's really freaking good. Food production and culture from every Tundra tile, relic slots. You know what? It's very situational. Like the situational is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, but in that situation, it is undeniably great. So I think the categories are letting me down a little bit here, which will be the case regardless of the category system I use. So I'm going to go with great but situational. I'm feeling okay about this. It's great but situational in the same way Biosphere is great but situational. And if I put Biosphere in here, like I think about these two wonders very similarly. Yeah, okay, I feel good about this. The tier list within the tier list is taking over, whereas like Petra is a little bit farther up, but whatever. I think St. Basil's Cathedral does go in here. I feel similarly as I do about Biosphere. When it pops off, it pops off. It is very situational, capital S situational perhaps, but in that situation, it is capital G great, so we're putting it here. Statue of Liberty is mostly like why, but also great. Like the situation, it's even worse than St. Basil's. If you, for whatever reason, find yourself going for a Diplo victory, you will need these Diplo victory points. It'll be hard to win the game without the Statue of Liberty. So in that sense, it's like great but essential. In the situation you want to build it, it is not only situational, not only great, I would say it's essential. You should be building it. You probably need to build it in every Diplo victory. Every other time, it's actively bad. The loyalty does almost nothing. Oh my god. Genuinely, I would put it in uninstall if it wasn't actually essential for a Diplo victory. Can a wonder swing between uninstall and great but situational? Because in the situation, this is so tough. In the situation, it is more essential than any of these other wonders, right? But it's no. I'll settle for what? Right in the middle. 2 tiers below, 2 tiers above. I'm settling for what? Really, though, it's like uninstall level. I'm going to, just to have one here, I'm going to put it in, like, do not build this. At all costs, you should not build this unless you are going for a Diplo victory, and I'll put that caveat. It is more efficient to uninstall the game than to build Statue of Liberty in your game. So, you know what? I'm going to put it there. Statue of Zeus, it's a good wonder. If you have the encampments and you're going for the domination victory, it's good. Like you're getting early battering rams, you're getting early units. Those units can then just be promoted, and so you're not using the production on the units. Like by the time you've used the production on the wonder, the units themselves would have cost that production anyway, which is great. The most efficient way to get better units is to have units that you can upgrade with gold, and so getting some archers, some spearmen, whatever it is, like that's incredible. I really like, even if you're not going, like you're a newer player, you're playing Civ, you're on Prince, and you got a couple of cities, and the AI is being a little naughty. You build an encampment, you check down statue. It's giving you a good defensive army. Like the amount of units it gives you is just kind of right. I really like Statue of Zeus. It's a good wonder. It's better than you think it is. I think it's a good wonder. The 50% production against to anti-cav units is also great. The AI frequently kind of busts you down with horses, and so that's wonderful. Yeah, it's a good wonder. I'm talking myself into it. It's good. I'm putting Stonehenge in Y. Like every time I build this, I go, why didn't I just do that normally? If you are on a difficulty where you are not able to get a religion quickly because the AI just sprints for them, they are also sprinting for Stonehenge and the religion anyway, so you're still not going to be able to get it. If you are building this on a lower difficulty where you can get a religion easily, just do it the normal way. Like get a good holy site, get a good pantheon that makes that holy site better, get your great prophet points. Like you don't need to do it the Stonehenge way. And while you're waiting, you could have put that production into a good holy site or a settler. Like, I just don't think the Stonehenge is very good. Sydney Opera House. If it did not give great work of music slots, it would be very bad. I'll put it in the what. I'm never asking why. If you are building Sydney Opera House for the great work of music slots in a culture victory because you have great musicians that have nowhere to go, it's pretty good, and it comes at a point in the game where it's like you're building it on a coastal city that's not really contributing much to the empire anyway. It's not often taking you away from something else that's essential. Yeah, it's what? Like, whatever. Like, I built it a handful of times and felt okay about it, right? You kind of got to know when to build it. It can be pretty bad pretty quickly, but the great work of music slots are nice. My only knock against Taj Mahal is the era score it gives you is kind of coming at the point in the game where you're done struggling with era score. If you map out my Civ games, almost all of my Dark Ages or Standard Ages are happening in the first 3. After that, I'm pretty good at managing my era score, right? And so I think it's definitely incredibly helpful in all games. Like that's where it's going for sure. What it does is it takes all of your kind of big era score moments and adds one to them. This is especially abusable in some aspects with like national parks. You can just rack up the era score. It pretty much, if you're playing a normal game of Civ, guarantees you, from the point you build this, just guarantees you golden ages from the point at which you build it till the end of the game, which is really, really nice. It comes at about 2/3 of the way through of most of my games. At that point, I'm not struggling with era score as much, but I do build it frequently. I feel good about it every time. And especially if you are a newer Civ player or a novice Civ player, if you build the Taj Mahal, it's just going to help you learn about the era score system more. It's going to give you that kind of ability to, not be efficient with your era score and still get some golden ages. I just think it's incredibly good. It's incredibly versatile. You're never going to be mad to build it. Every time you build this, you will feel great about it, which is kind of the definition of incredibly helpful. Because of the point it comes into the game, I don't think you need to build it every game. There are loads of games where I don't, because I just know I'm going to have golden ages anyway. So it's not that good. It's not as good as these three, but it's kind of in line. It's better than some of these, I'd say, too. So yeah, it's right in the mix here. Incredibly helpful in all games it's built. Temple of Artemis, good wonder. The food and housing early on in the game, that's like a meaningful amount of food and housing. It kind of avoids some of the mistakes that Hanging Gardens has, where it's kind of growing out of sync with what else is going on in your city. It's giving you food and the housing to match it, which is really, really nice. The camp and pasture and plantation and whatever, giving you amenities, that's more situational. If you have enough to get a lot of amenities, it's kind of great and pretty immediately great. But yeah, it's a good wonder. It's not really even a backup wonder, like you'll know if you want to build it. There are a couple games though where I kind of get later in the game, no one's built it yet, and I'm like, you know what, I'll take the yields it gives and the amenities and the rest. So yeah, it's a good wonder. Terracotta Army, I'm putting in great but situational. That might be a hot take. The best way for me to win a domination victory is to have a small army of highly promoted units. Those unit promotions do a lot of hard work. And at the point you build Terracotta Army, you can kind of time it with the size of the army you want and get those promotions. I mentioned earlier that kind of the best way to win a domination victory is to have those highly promoted units that you can then just upgrade. So instead of building more units, you are just upgrading the ones you have. And so every time I build Terracotta Army and get the promotions, I always feel so great about it. It's a great wonder. It does kind of need the military to promote, but even again defensively, like if all you have is a couple of archers in your cities and you punch out a Terracotta Army and get all of those garrison promotions, you've immediately just become 1,000 times more defensive. I think it's a great wonder. I really do. I really like Terracotta Army. That might be a personal taste thing. It's definitely situational, but it's also great. I think, yeah, great but situational. I think Tour de Belém is a good wonder. I think it's a good wonder. Like if you're building it on a coastal city, you're sending a lot of trade routes out. It synergizes well if you are using a strategy where you are sending a lot of trade routes from one city to a lot of allied cities, like a Whistlebankin democracy strategy. It synergizes well with that. Yeah, I just think it's a good wonder. Now, this is probably because I play on deity, and I'm trying not to just hold deity against the wonders. I'm trying to take a more holistic view. If you're playing on a lower difficulty and the whole world hasn't been expanded yet, this also does give you a really good opportunity to go and expand the world, go to other continents and get some free low-cost production buildings built. I think this is better on lower difficulties. Like I think your average Civ player not playing on deity likes Tour de Belém a lot more than your average deity player would, just by virtue of when you're able to kind of get out and settle the other continents on the map. And even so, it's pretty good. I think it's a good wonder. I think the abilities it gives you are nice. It doesn't come too late in the game to not make use of those abilities. And even if the building one is not helpful for you, you can really, synergize the trade route one really well with a lot of other aspects of the game. So yeah, good wonder. University of Sancor is a wonder that's great conceptually, but it's still it's so close to being something great, but isn't quite. Same with Jebel Barkal. Like these desert wonders are close, but not quite there. I think the fact that it relies on domestic trade routes is a little bit of a knock against it. It's typically better to trade internationally in most of your games, but it's taking up some desert adjacencies that are typically pretty bad. If you're not going to be able to get a Petra, like a Jebel University of Sancor is fine. It is giving you a more science-focused way to play in a city that might not have a science focus. You're just typically not getting good campuses next to deserts. Also, it's just kind of what? I get what it's trying to do. When you can build it, it's fine, but it doesn't quite ever reach the heights of what it's trying to do. So it's what? Venetian Arsenal. Oh my goodness. Controversial wonder. If Potato McWhiskey ends up watching this video, Just putting it up there. I just want you can pause the video and leave the video now. You don't have to watch the end of it. I don't know what to do with this. The ability is pretty rad. Like when it's on its game and it is doubling your boats, like when you build a boat in a Venetian arsenal city, you get 2. And boats are high production, and because they're on the coast, you typically don't have a lot of production in those cities. So it is incredibly efficient. It is not incredibly helpful in all games. I'm gonna go great but situational. Like in the situation in which you are just busting out privateers to go and like pillage the whole world, Venetian Arsenal is amazing. In the situation where you've gotten halfway through and you are deciding to build a navy and go kill the rest of the world, it's great. Yeah, it is very situational. It gives you great engineer points, which is never bad. I think it's great but situational. I'm trying to talk myself out of it because I feel like if someone put this in what or why, I would understand. Again, it's very capital S situational, but it can be capital G great. I'm gonna put it in great but situational. Is that it? Have I tier ranked all the wonders? I'm just gonna go through quickly and see if there's anything I violently disagree with. I think Statue of Liberty is the one uninstall is pretty good. This is looking right to me. This is all looking okay. I have some thoughts about this, but it's looking okay. It's only been, I've been recording for 2 hours. So some of the first ones I put, I've had 2 hours to sleep on. Good / backup wonders. I'm feeling good about this. Great Zimbabwe is a hot pick here, but I'm feeling good about this. Great but situational. This is the hardest one because defining what situational is and what great is constantly difficult, because you could say, well, isn't Hagia Sophia great but situational? Isn't Huey great but situational? So it's kind of like how great is great and how situational is situational. But I feel good about this. Incredibly helpful in all games it's built. I would agree with this. Like if you build these in every game, you'll always feel good about it. And build every game, no questions asked. I feel like these are the 3 that I would build in every game, no questions asked. I feel like I do have some questions. Big Ben is still the only one. That economic policy card slot is so good. I'm moving it up. I'm doing it. That's my one change. I circled back. It was one of the first things I did. I circled back to put Big Ben up top. I think I will cease to ask you questions. I will never ask you a question about building the Big Ben. And that, everybody, is my Civ 6 Wonder tier list. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought of the tier list in the comments below. I know a lot of you will disagree with me. I know a lot of you will be mad about the categories. I know a lot of you will be like, why didn't you put this there or in this situation? That is part of the fun of this. Just be respectful, be kind. We're all coming at this game with a different point of view. Separately from that, this is a video game. None of this matters. The life is not over because the tier lists are different than mine, than yours, than someone else's. All right, so please don't take this too seriously. I hope, though, that if you are playing Civ, this is a relatively helpful guide. I took this seriously enough that someone who's new to Civ can take this and go, okay, I'm going to start building some of these wonders at the top and my game will get better. I'm going to avoid some of the wonders at the bottom as they're a bit of a waste of time. Like, I think that that's a good tier list for that as well. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know if there's any other tier lists you'd like me to do before Civ 7 comes out down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.